have any idea what he's talking about. And yeah, oh, right. I'm live. Hi, Deconverted Man here. This is part two. Steve Copland, whatever, I don't care. He doesn't understand things. In part one, I went over the many fallacies that he committed as I put random stuff on my head and did weird things. So, to wrap up that part, basically started with the argument that there are no actual true atheists because atheists don't behave like animals, even though we do, since we are animals. And if evolution is true, which it is true, then that means that we would go insane like Nietzsche did, even though he probably went insane because he'd been sick his entire life, and that probably weakened his mental state and what led eventually to him losing his mind, that seemed to be deteriorating around that time and snapped finally. But yeah, Nietzsche went insane because atheism somehow. Anyways, so that non-argument that was full of poisoning the well, red herring, straw man, false dichotomies, and no true Scotsman didn't convince me or anyone else, and shouldn't convince anybody of anything other than Steve has no idea what the hell he's saying. But that doesn't stop Steve. No, he launches now into the cosmological argument. And no matter what version of the cosmological argument you find, there is always going to be at least one fallacy. I almost guarantee it, unless that argument is actually made by science and not apologists. Apologists rely essentially upon Thomas Aquinas's broken argument that at the time maybe people didn't know was broken because we didn't know that much about science back then. But now we do. The idea is a deductive or inductive deductive argument that, well, things have causes, so if we rewind that, then everything has a cause, and then there must be an uncaused causer that caused everything. And that seems rather nice little package, and cause and effect is the key point of that and most, if not all, cosmological arguments. Because you have a set thing, and of course it can't go infinite because it just can't. And there has to be a beginning to the universe, even though we don't know that there is or isn't a beginning of the universe. There just has to be, and that somehow proves the Bible and or God. There's a lot of steps to get to, but that whole cause and effect thing doesn't jive with science. You see, if the Big Bang model is correct, and by and large most cosmologists agree with it, so it might be, there might be other possible explanations, but nonetheless, if the universe was in a very dense state, then it was also extremely hot. How hot? 10 to the power of 32 Kelvin. That's really, really, really hot. At that temperature, elementary particles like quarks and gluons exist as quark-gluon plasma. Protons and neurons, which are made of quarks that are bound together by gluons, couldn't form because the energy is just too high. So there's not even protons and neutrons yet, let alone atoms or molecules. So once the universe begins to cool down, then these things can form, but not before. So what is a universe at 10 to the power of 32 like? Or let's go even higher than that if possible. The problem is essentially we say, well, we think that that's like the limit, that, you know, this is essentially the what's it called? Yeah, 10 to the 32 Kelvin, the Planck temperature. That's whatever that is the highest temperature that is possible. And there's a similar idea that there's a Planck length, which is the smallest length that anything can be. This is hypothetical or theoretical in nature. We don't know exactly what the highest is, but at any rate, 10 to the 32, anything above that, yeah. Basically, strong, weak electromagnetic forces, we think, we don't know, unify into a single force, and that would be described in grand unifying theories, which there aren't that many of. So particles like leptons or quarks would be indistinguishable from each other, and basically we don't know what's going on there. So it could be that string theory would be needed here to explain what's going on. Or it could be quantum gravity, or perhaps some combination thereof. What the hell is quantum gravity? No idea. What about string theory? I don't know. Not a scientist, not a cosmologist. But the important thing to note is most apologists aren't either. I don't know if there is a cosmologist who's also an apologist, but if there was, I would doubt that they would use the cosmological argument unless they were a really bad cosmologist. There's just too much we don't know about what this sort of universe would be like. You enter the realm of hypothetical, that you have speculative phases that could exist, like preons that are hypothetical particles that make up quarks and leptons, and other unknowns that who knows what they do. Then there'd be supersymmetry that might play a role. We don't know is the answer. And as far as cause and effect, well, at this temperature, the fundamental interactions are very, very different. So there's quantum gravitational effects that dominate. What's that like? We don't know. We don't have a complete theory of quantum gravity. I don't know what that is, quantum gravity, but we don't have a complete theory of it. So how cause and effect works in that system, we don't know. And it is that I don't know where the theist goes, I'm going to put God right in that hole. We don't know, therefore God, because it has to be cause and effect. It just has to be that. Even though the honest answer, the true answer is cause and effect might not be a thing when you get to that temperature and when you get towards the Planck temperature. Oh, what would happen to a human at 10 to the 32 Kelvin? You wouldn't be human anymore. You wouldn't be anything anymore. The particles that make you would not even be anymore. Remember, atoms can't exist at those temperatures. So you just vanish. There is no you. There's no explosion. There's no implosion. There's just nothing. You're a bunch of gluons and possible outcomes that might exist, but can't quite because it's too damn hot. It's probably the fastest way to die that could happen. So fast that you wouldn't get a chance to even register what was going on. Your brain would just be like doing brain stuff, and you'd be walking along, and the next thing, that's it. You're just gone. Bye-bye. That's it. You wouldn't even know. It's too fast because it's so hot. It's just, you fly apart into nothingness. You didn't even get a cool effect. It's not like, it's just poof, just gone. Just isn't there. That's how hot it is. Imagine, put an ice cube in a microwave, or, it's even faster than that. Like, it's not even that it's melting. It just isn't an ice cube. It's not water anymore. It's not anything anymore. So, yeah, at those temperatures, we don't know. And then the opposite is also true. As you approach apparently scientists have gotten closer and closer to near zero. but we can't get to zero. But at those temperatures, things also tend to change as well. So, what would happen to the human body at near zero? Well, you'd freeze solid and die. At least there, something you're still there, but yeah, you're a popsicle, and you're probably unrecognizable because you freeze so fast that you kind of just compact together. Yeah, it'd be. I think that one you maybe have a half of a quantum of a second or whatever to know what's going on before you go out. But you're dead either way. So now what happens if we put zero and the the Planck heat temperature, and we don't know. We don't know what would happen if those two ran into each other. And so the honest, actual answer to is there a cause and effect going backwards is we know up to a point, but then we don't. So logic can't tell us what's going on if logic itself also changes. And what's logic based on? Well, our reality that we observe, that we find ourselves in, broadly speaking. Now, some laws of logic might be fundamental, like the law of identity. Then again, maybe not. Yeah, it gets that weird in that hot temperature where things are kind of in and out of existence because they're plasma. They're not even plasma yet. We don't know. Cause and effect, we don't know what's going on. It might, things appear and disappear, and time isn't really even kind of there, but it is, but it isn't, because space isn't also there, but it is, but it isn't. And it's bizarre. And so formal and informal logic, to map to that, you need a new framework of logic, and certain model logic might be applicable, but yeah, you'd have to have basically logic that allows for if then or possibilities, not straightforward answers. So you'd be dealing with a lot of hypotheticals, and your logic gates would be very bizarre if you could even make a logic gate, hypothetically speaking. So the answer again is we don't know. Logic seems to go boom and go, okay, we don't know what's after that point because we don't know what physics is like. Not really. We have some ideas, but not enough ideas. You would need a grand unified theory of everything. Quantum gravity, you need to know that. You would have to have, of course, quantum physics in general. Then you'd have to have relativity on top of that. And you'd have to have possibly string theory on top of that to try to even explain what's going on at those temperatures. So the cosmological arguments should be put to rest and not used anymore. Science has killed them. They're dead. End of story. Logic can't comment on them because logic maps to reality, and if we don't know what reality is like, then we can't make any comments on it. But the apologist still utilizes the cosmological arguments, like there's a stuck record or something. And one wonders, why do they continuously use arguments that have been debunked both in logic and in science? Appeal to tradition? Because they don't have any other arguments? Because they don't think that they're broken? I don't know. But it seems rather like you've just given up. Like, I'm going to keep using this argument, hoping that nobody looks up any of this stuff because it sounds good. It sounds intuitive. Oh, yes. Cause and effect. Oh, yes, we're all familiar with cause and effect. So obviously that keeps going back. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. But it doesn't doesn't matter if it makes sense or sounds like it makes sense. What matters is it actually true? And we don't know. So all that being said, let's check out how much this guy doesn't know as he goes over the broken argument that has plenty of logical and scientific errors in it. The classic cosmological argument. I don't know which version he's going to be presenting us with, if it's Aquinas' or if it's the Kalam or whatever, but it's broken. Here we go.
Argument number 2. God as first cause, and this argument comes primarily from Thomas Aquinas in the 11th to 12th century. The English word because comes from this idea. Everything happens because something or someone made it happen.
All right, yeah, last time before I had a total brain meltdown, I looked up the word because and it comes from French, and it doesn't match the origin that he said it is. So he's also wrong about the word because.
Behind every effect is a cause. Although this argument may be quite powerful at arguing a God behind everything, it also has some very weak points. For example, in this scenario, God may have just started everything and then just gone on holiday and left us to ourselves. This is the fundamental philosophy and foundation of deism. Also, God may have simply ceased to exist. Now, given the evidence of evil in the world, God may also be an evil God, not a loving one. However, apart from these criticisms, consider the fact that everything we see around us and in space is in motion. So it stands to reason that there was something or someone to begin this process.
Okay, so here we have again this deductive and or inductive reasoning being employed. And the problem comes with, well, first of all, we've only observed a small part of the universe, like 0.001%, whatever. So we don't know that that's true for everywhere in the entire universe. We only know it's true of what we know about. So we can't make a universal statement honestly. But who cares about honesty, right? We're doing apologetics. We don't need honesty. We just need faith and bad arguments. Broken arguments, I should say. Non-sound arguments. Yeah, so, yeah. And then if you know that there's problems with this argument, why use it? Like, you admit that there's other possible problems with the argument, but who cares? There's stuff in motion. Yeah, gravity makes stuff move towards each other. So gravity is the thing that makes stuff move. You don't need anything other than that to explain any of that. So I guess the thing that you're referring to is gravity then.
Everything is made up of atoms, and atoms are always in constant motion. Consider also that of all the animals in the world, humans are not necessary. Indeed, the world environment would function much better without us.
That's true of all animals and all life and everything, period. Not the planet Earth itself, also not necessary. Nor is this entire solar system, and nor is the universe, really. So this is a different argument, the necessity argument, that there has to be one necessary thing, and that necessary thing, of course, is God. Whatever.
According to some, it is human beings who are destroying the delicate balance of nature. Now, if the world has beings which are not necessary, then why are we here? Evolution would not evolve such beings because the theory of evolution presupposes change for the better.
All right, I think I mentioned this last time, but whatever. We're doing part 2, and I wanted to do it from the start. So, no, evolution does not suggest anything like that. You don't understand evolution at all. It's not. There's no mind behind evolution that we know of that's guiding it to a certain point or about being better. No, it's about being able to survive the environment. And humans developed the brain as their method to conquer the environment. And that brain adaptation continued to evolve because competitions with other humans and Neanderthals. And we beat the Neanderthals, although some of their DNA is still with us today. Maybe a lot of it in this guy's brain.
Rather than change in order to destroy the entire process.
Right. Yeah, evolution also doesn't know that it's making beings that are destroying nature because evolution isn't a thing that knows stuff. So this is just a fundamental, complete, utter misunderstanding, lack of understanding, non understanding of biological evolution, of what it says, what it purports, what it actually does and doesn't do. Why did evolution make us? It didn't. And the first creatures that, well, not the first creatures, but one of the first creatures at any rate, made pollution that we call oxygen. And that radically and fundamentally changed the planet, killing off other creatures. So, why did evolution make creatures that destroy the environment where there was already creatures there? Well, because evolution didn't know anything, because that's not what it does, and those creatures didn't know that they were polluting the environment. We humans do know that we're polluting the environment, and it might very well wipe us and other creatures out, but if anything survives, then it will survive in the new environment that it finds itself in and adapt to the new environment. And as that environment changes over time, things will change over time to adapt to it, or perhaps all life will be extinguished, which would suck. But, what are you going to do?
The answer or cause of this dilemma must of necessity be God, and the reason be much more than mere survival.
Well, that doesn't follow. The reason or necessity of humans must be God? How does it? Nothing you said leads to that conclusion.
The Bible suggests a perfect creation which has gone wrong because of sin, not
Yeah, the Bible says a lot of things that aren't true. I don't know why you're citing the Bible as if the atheist would care one bit what the Bible says. This is nothing but circular argumentation. You need to prove that the Bible is true, which you haven't done. And you won't do and you can't do. Yeah, this guy actually asked me for a link to the video where I covered his video, and I said, YouTube deletes links, so he can't even find my video. So, why do I think he can find any answers to any of these questions? Like, he wrote a book because just wrote stuff that he doesn't know anything about. Anybody can write a book. I wrote a book. I wrote 2 books. I've written more books, but I haven't released them. But at any rate, yeah, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. I don't know what else to tell him.
Not as Darwin presumed, a chaotic world evolving towards perfection and creating only the
Oh, right. God made the universe or the earth good, and then it became bad. Yeah, that's God's fault, man. God made the system in a way that it could fail. So that's God. That's on God's fault. Period. End of story. God set up the system, and then the system failed. So God must have set up the system to fail. Unless God is incompetent, which goes to my argument for God, that God is a nitwit, which explains everything, really. If God is an idiot, well, then, yeah, of course things are screwed up, because God doesn't know what the hell it's doing. It's stupid and dumb. But humans are somehow smarter than God. I'm not sure how that happened. Must have been a accident on God's part.
Necessary evolutionary steps to achieve that end. Human beings do not fit the evolutionary scheme in this sense. We may all
So, how did we get from the cosmological argument, which he briefly touched on, to back to evolution again, which he doesn't understand or comprehend at any level, and nor does he want to? Typical creationist, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about when he talks about evolution.
also ask about the source of moral ideas such as nobility, truth, etc., and ask what causes humans to have such values.
That has nothing to do with the cosmological argument, which I thought you were presenting. So you don't understand morals or where they came from. Oh well, too bad on you. I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't understand. Therefore, God must be God. This is non-logic. This is not anything here. The cause of morals, evolution. Again, evolution of society. Evolution that got us to have complicated brains. But if you had done any research at all on the matter and not just instead read your Bible, you would actually know the answers to these questions that you're asking the atheist. But this is supposed to be an argument for God. But it's not arguing for God. It's not arguing for anything at all, not even a little bit. It's not even the cosmological argument, which you could have made. It would have been broken, but at least you could have made it. You're all over the place. Get on track.
These are not found in the animal kingdom in any of the so-called stages of evolution.
Wrong. Animals display morals. Went over that last time. Got a whole bunch of links to show that that's true.
If we study the next step down in the so-called evolutionary chain, supposedly chimpanzees, we find absolutely no moral concepts at all.
Wrong. On both accounts. It's not a step down because that's not how evolution works or define things as. Chimpanzees are, related to us and we have a common ancestor. And yeah, there's been demonstrations that show that they have morals. So you're just wrong. That's it. You're just wrong.
Not even a hint of philosophical thinking. The answer must be that these values are a reflection of a moral being we call God.
Or it's a reflection of that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, which I'm going to go with. No, your morals are because we are social creatures. And like all other animals, social creatures want to continue to be with other social creatures. So our morals developed as a result of our desires, which developed as a result of our needs, which is dependent upon each other when way back when, because we're pack hunters, broadly speaking. And we needed to be pack hunters to take down the larger creatures than us to be able to feed all of us. So it's kind of like, this ongoing change and needs and of the species as a whole, all of which you would understand if you watched, I don't know, any documentary on nature or human evolution, like the one we're all children of Africa, for example. There's a whole thing about how we all came from Africa and all the things that we overcame to do that, and it's amazing and full of information that you don't care about, I guess.
Who has planted them in the only animals made in his image, human beings. Now, Richard Dawkins, the military.
Okay, so the image thing, I probably brought this up last time, but it's worth covering again. Why do we look like this? Like, What purpose does this serve to God? Because he could have made us look anyway. Why are my eyeballs not as sophisticated as other animals? Why can I see only certain spectra of light? Why can some people not see at all? What about hearing? Why isn't that like other animals that can hear things higher and lower than humans can? And again, some humans can't hear anything at all. That must be all the sin stuff, I guess. Sin just explains all the negative aspects of reality, I suppose, which means it doesn't actually explain anything because it's a non explanation. You have to assume that sin's a thing, which I don't because I don't believe in that bullshit. Because I don't believe in your bullshit story. And it is bullshit because you haven't yet demonstrated even a little that it is anything other than bullshit. All you have done is demonstrate your overwhelming lack of knowledge on everything so far.
An atheist who wrote the book The God Delusion admits that no scientist has any clue as to the first cause which began the universe.
Yeah, we don't know that.
Yet he argues that it must have been something very simple that became more complex. I find this argument pathetic in the extreme.
I find you pathetic in the extreme, but that doesn't mean anything. Demonstrably demonstrate that the argument has one or more logical fallacies, as I've been doing throughout. Your logical fallacies are numerous, just, well, mostly it's appeal to ignorance and personal incredulity over and over again. But most of what you're saying is, well, bald assertions made without any proof or evidence or arguments at all. Statements that you think are true, but aren't. And you also have red herrings, you have tangents, you have non-arguments, which is formal fallacy. You haven't even you began with the cosmological argument as if you were going to talk about that, and then you went way off into this tangent and red herring. Now you're talking about Dawkins. Who cares what Dawkins says in regards to cosmology? He's not a cosmologist. So, moving on.
How could any rational person say that the painting was more complex than the painter?
Well, depending on how you look at it, I guess it could be. So whatever Dawkins said about the universe, which wouldn't matter, you know what would be great? Citation. When and where did Dawkins say that? Because I don't believe you. I don't think that Dawkins did say this ever. I just don't believe you. I think you're a liar. Yeah, calling you a liar. Because, I mean, you've been wrong about everything. So either you're wrong or you're lying, or maybe both. I don't know anymore. But I don't believe you. So yeah. But even if Dawkins said it, I don't care what Dawkins says. It doesn't matter. It's not relevant. But the thing that began the universe, we don't know how, if there is a began to the universe, nor do we know what or how that worked. And Dawkins said, well, probably something very simple. He has no idea. It's a guess at best. That's all. He was guessing. Moving on.
Or the song more complex than the composer. Yet atheists such as Dawkins refuse to apply this simple logic to the existence of the universe.
Okay, so God is the most complicated creature / being to ever have existed, since the universe has to be simpler than the thing that made it, right? That would have to follow. But if it's so massively complicated, then why is it that some theists say that God is simple? I don't know. Whatever. So, but I don't care what you think God is. you need to demonstrate that God is at all, which you still haven't done. You haven't there is no argument here to analyze. Give me an argument, please.
Argument number 3, design.
He didn't even cover. There was no argument there. There was not an argument. There wasn't an argument. Yeah, he's like, that's the, nothing. Cosmological argument. Evolution, Dawkins, how do you explain morals? I don't understand things. Oh, you're a moron. It's not even an argument. I can't. There's nothing to analyze. There was no premises. If this was an essay, you'd get a big old giant F because your opening statement was cosmological argument. Let's talk about evolution. Tangent. Fail. Let's talk about Dawkins. Tangent. Fail. Let's talk about morals. Tangent. Fail. You failed. Your essay sucks. Your argument isn't even an argument. You got nothing. There. I wish I had something to analyze. All I can do is point out that you have zero idea what you're talking about in regards to everything that you said. And I don't know what apologist hang up is with Dawkins. We don't care. Like most atheists, we don't really care. Like, yeah, he's an interesting guy. He's fun to listen to. Like, but I haven't read any of his books. I listen to his lectures every now and again, but I listen to him talk to theists or whatever he's doing sometimes. But that it's like you treat him like he's the end all be all of atheists or something. Like, go after me. Find a thing that I've said to go after and cherry pick. Come on, I want attention too. I made videos about you. Give me attention. Anyways, so I guess if this guy responds to any of my videos, which I doubt that he ever will because he's a dishonest charlatan who has no idea what he's talking about, that he would be like, oh, you didn't respond to my arguments. To which I would say, you didn't have any arguments. It's hard to respond to something that you don't have. And he'd be like, well, I don't understand evolution. I'm like, I know you don't understand evolution. That's the problem. That's one problem. Nor do you understand, it seems to be anything about anything. All right, that's it. I wanted to go an hour, but there's not enough to make content for. So I guess we'll do part 3 starting at 12:30, and we'll just do that next time. So yeah, I mean, I guess I could do it now, but I don't want to. So that's it. We'll see you next time, and until then, be skeptical, and after then, stay skeptical. This guy had no argument. Nothing. I don't know. Cosmological. Yeah.